Live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. I am Mike Kadlick, joined, as always, by Alex Barth from 98.5 The Sports Up. We are here. We're going to break down the Patriots' dominant 26-3 win over the Colts on Sunday. So dominant of a win, Alex, that since we were on here on Sunday night's postgame show, Jim Irsay, the Colts brass, mostly just Jim Irsay, but fired Coach Frank Reich. He's no longer with the team. And there was some speculation, thoughts from, I know I saw Zach Kiefer from The Athletic say that maybe a guy, Bubba Ventrone, who was here in the past, or a John Fox, for example, who was a head coach, or a Gus Bradley maybe fill in. But no, the Colts go and they hire Jeff Saturday from the ESPN booth. Jeff Saturday was a longtime center in Indy. Apparently, according to Chris Ballard, their GM, they had tried to hire him into the front office and things from the past, but they decided to make Jeff Saturday their interim head coach. So the Patriots have sort of thrown Indy for a complete loop after their win against them on Sunday.
Yeah, it's really a mess over there. I mean, it's something else, and it's not just obviously the Patriots game. I mean, this has clearly been building, but this is a team that was in first place in the division a month ago, albeit a not overly competitive division. They beat the Chiefs earlier this year.
Right.
So things have gone downhill very quickly in Indy, and I think what you can attribute it to maybe more than anything else, and I have two Patriots-related points on this news. Going year to year at quarterback does not work. Doesn't work. I know there's some people around here who have said, well, if Mac Jones isn't going to work, Bill's last couple of years, just kind of bring in veteran quarterbacks and string them together so you have somebody. No, quarterbacking is about routine and rhythm as much as it is anything else. And being able to build that routine, being in the same system for multiple years, being around the same coaches for multiple years, which is obviously something Mac Jones doesn't have right now. Those are valuable points. Yes, a Tom Brady last dance would be outstanding. I see in the chat there. But that's a little bit of a different scenario, right? He's been here. He has a routine here. He has a rhythm here. So I don't, Frank Reich never really got a fair shot in Indy with the way they managed the quarterback situation. They should have either traded up to take a guy or at least tried to invest somewhat in the draft. Sam Ehlinger was a 6th-round pick. That's just not going to cut it. My other Patriots-related take, and I saw people bringing this up in the chat, bringing in Frank Reich as an offensive consultant, whatever. I don't know that he's going to rush back into coaching. Oops, sorry about that. It's working on the cardboard desk right now.
You're good. You're straight.
I don't know that he's going to come back into coaching right away. For like a rest of the year advisor thing, I wouldn't hate it. I don't think it would make the difference some people would think it would make. And in terms of the long term, yes, this team needs a true experienced offensive coordinator. They do. Matt Patricia's not cutting it. I would like to think they can do better than Frank Reich. I really would. Who exactly is that? Is it Josh McDaniels? If he gets let go, is it Bill O'Brien?
It's Josh. That's what I think.
Ideally,
I think it's Josh McDaniels. Yeah.
I wouldn't go hire Frank Reich to like a long-term offensive coordinator contract right now. First off, I don't think they will. They're going to see this out to the end of the year with Patricia. That's just how Bill does things. Yeah. But even beyond that, you don't know who's going to be available, right? So I wouldn't just rush in and be like, an offensive coach is available. Quick, go grab him. At this point, you're in the hole you're in. Play out these final 8 weeks, see how it goes. And I have a pretty good feeling Frank Reich will still be there when we get to February. And maybe there'll be better options that you would have missed if you ran into hiring Frank Reich. So that's my Patriots-related take on it. But boy, what an absolute mess in Indianapolis. And I don't think they're done. Chris Ballard, I can't imagine feels safe about his job. If he's the one behind these hires, he shouldn't feel safe about his job. I think it's a Jim Irsay thing.
I think it feels more so like it's top down from Irsay, from everything.
I don't know if Joey, what's his last name? The guy who does the impressions. He used to work for Barstool. He doesn't anymore.
Oh, Joey Molinaro.
Molinaro did a great bit. I don't know if you saw that today with Irsay and Ballard. Check that out. But what a mess. What a freaking mess. It's what they deserve to. Upper top of the upper quartile that quartile, whatever. Get the hell out of here, Jim. Since 2000, if we're only grading teams since 2000, and that's like the be-all, end-all of how we assess the state of a franchise, the Patriots are still in the best position of any team in the league as we sit here right now. Get the hell out of here with that.
Yeah, again, I mean, I agree, right? I agree on your sentiment on Reich too. I don't think
Yeah,
anyone's gonna be blowing doors down to hire a guy like Frank Reich a long term anyway, right away. You've seen the Patriots do that a lot of times with guys who are still being paid from other places, so you can bring
right,
them in sort of on the low. And so again, maybe if it's some sort of offensive consultant through the end of the year type thing, maybe, but I don't see it happening. Again, like you said, they're probably going to ride this out because they're 5-4, they're over 500 for the first time this season. Uh, the AFC playoff picture as it currently stands is not as good as we thought it would be. It's mostly filled with AFC East teams. The Patriots have a lot of AFC East teams still coming up on their schedule, so they're right in the thick of it here. And as bad as it may be, it might be worse if you completely throw a curveball into the offensive thing, or the
right.
offensive operation, right? But let's get into that now. Let's talk about the offense and kind of what they did against. It's a tough game, like we had mentioned to break down, just because of how bad and how much of a dumpster fire the Colts were on Sunday and have been really over the last couple weeks. But let's sort of get into the offense and what they did on Sunday. They're struggling to consistently put up points week in and week out. They've been lucky to have played some of the teams they played the last couple weeks. I mean, granted, the Jets played well against Buffalo, but they had their number in that game, and then this Colts team was just a disaster. But
Yeah.
Mac goes 20 of 30, 157 yards and a touchdown. Didn't turn the ball over for the first time in I think like 7 games, which I mean, I guess that's something to hang your hat on, but he's still under way too much pressure. There's way too many moving pieces up front, and they just can't find a rhythm at all. And I don't entirely blame it on him, but they need help. And again, it's like the Colts. The Colts were a good team to kind of be able to play before you buy.
Yeah, I mean, and look, as much as we just dumped on the Colts, I still think their defense has some redeeming qualities. The big check that
Sure.
I use that I think we've kind of adopted on the show. Do they have a
Hmm.
playmaker at all 3 levels? When it comes to the Colts, yes, they certainly do. And DeForest Buckner, Shaquille Leonard, and then obviously Stephon Gilmore. So that being said, that offensive performance is just not going to cut it, even against a defense like that. They have those 3 playmakers. Going beyond that, they don't have much else in the secondary. Their defensive line's pretty good all the way across.
Yeah.
Beyond that, like Bobby Okeriki's an okay player at the second level next to Shaquille Leonard, but he's not anybody you're going to game planned around or anything like that. He's not a guy that's going to be a game breaker. I know Kenny Moore's had a couple good years here. He's really struggled, though, in 2022. You need to show more against a defense like that. You just do. And we've talked ad nauseum about why the Patriots offense is anemic as it is, from the play calling to the lack of setup to the offensive line. To me, it all comes back to the offensive line. I think this
Yeah.
game was a great example of that, but they're still just sort of spinning their wheels. And like you said, a great game to play heading to the bye, because I think that at least for the offense, that game pointed out a ton of their obvious weaknesses. Now the question is, can they fix them? And I don't know
Hmm.
that there are easy answers to a lot of those questions. Some of them there are. You can just call more setup plays, period. End of story. They should be doing that. The offensive line is a little bit trickier, right? Getting David Andrews back will help. Cole Strange is not the same player when he does not have David Andrews helping him out. That has become
Not at
blatantly
all.
clear. But the problem now is, have things in his game been exposed that even when David Andrews comes back, teams will pick on him? If I'm another team, I'm sending 3 rushers into that gap, into that A gap, right?
Right.
Because Andrews isn't going to be able to help Strange and take care of his own guy. And then you have a third player in there. You're going to force them to move the line around, keep guys in. At right tackle, Yadni Kajust held his own on Sunday, which is good. But for it to be week 9 and we're taking a victory lap on the right tackle holding his own is not where a productive offense is. So that to me is the big one. They have to get the offensive line figured out, because all of the other issues, whether it's Mac Jones, whether it's the wide receivers, the running game kind of stagnating a little bit here, whatever it is, it all comes back to the offensive line. Whether you think Mac Jones is the guy or not, you're, in terms of what you've seen this season, if you're just basing that evaluation off the season, if you think he's the guy, you don't think he's the guy, you're wrong. We haven't seen enough because he's
Right.
constantly under pressure. So that's not to excuse him. That's not to say, oh, the offensive line sucks. Go give him a 5-year, $200 million extension. But fixing the offensive line problem will start to fix a lot of the other problems. And then we'll have a much better idea of what the true talent level on this offense is.
Right, I agree, and we've talked too, like, about the internal clock situation, with him, and
Yeah.
just as far as how bad, as your offensive line gets worse, you're sped up, and your reads get sped up, and you don't make them as clear, and you don't have enough time, right? And so, hopefully, a bye week with, these guys getting healthy, right? You get David Andrews healthy, you get Cole Strange, some confidence back perhaps as you use these 2 weeks to scheme up the Jets and sort of get some rest and get healthy, right? But then can a week off reset that internal clock? It's hard to say. But if you're not, if you're not getting manhandled and pressured for 14 straight days, and instead you're practicing and kind of getting used to, okay, let's get a rhythm down and let's get these guys back up to speed. It should and could help you out a little bit, but if they go back out there against the Jets in 2 weeks and the same things are happening along the offensive line, then Mac's not going to get any better. He's going to continue to regress, and it's not necessarily going to be all his fault. There are some plays out there. I saw something today, just a play, and I kind of want to give some kudos to Hunter Henry for having a pretty decent day, but he also made a really bad. He didn't look great on one of these other plays, and I'll just get into it a little bit. But it was a play, like I said, that Dan Orlovsky broke down, right? And it's a 3rd and 4, and they run a bunch on the right, a snag concept. Kendrick Bourne gets to the sticks. Hunter Henry runs like a sail route, you call it, where you're 10, 15 yards, you break to the sideline. Opposite side is Tyquan Thornton one-on-one with Stephon Gilmore. And this is where I see Mac Jones just not having his head on his shoulders and not making the right read. And I think it's on him, but it kind of has to do with everything around him, because he looks to Tyquan first read when he's manned up on Stephon Gilmore. And it's like, I don't know why you're going there on 3rd and 4. You should be looking at your snag concept. But then Hunter Henry runs an awful, awful sail route. He's not even moving. He doesn't do any clear out. And so it's like, if he can't trust Hunter Henry to even run a right route to get your clear out to Bourne on the sticks on the inside, you're going to want to just go to the one-on-one instead. So it's not only Mac Jones, it's kind of everybody here. And they need to get on the same page, and they need to do it soon, because they are 5-4 and they are right in the playoff hunt, but there's just so many pieces that need to work together. And the fact that you're in week 9 and they're not doing it at all yet it's definitely very concerning.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong there. One interesting note on Henry, though, and you talk about the kind of routes that he's running.
Yeah.
That play up the seam, him out of the slot, going up the seam, was like their bread and butter last year. And,
Yes.
I talked to Scott Zolak about this today, and he said, like, that's something they need to run more. They're clearly comfortable with it. If you look at the numbers, Hunter Henry's actually lining up in the inline significantly more than he was last year. His inline percentage has gone from 44% to 62%. All of those snaps have come from him running in the slot. And running routes out of the slot is very different than running them inline, right? You have your hand in the ground. You're going to get chipped pretty much one way or the other by the defensive end as he's coming around, right? So that's something where, like, you mentioned Hunter Henry is a guy who they need to get more involved, and maybe he looks disengaged. That's a great way to get him going and juice him up. Put him in the slot. Stop putting him in line. And this is, again, where that offensive line thing comes in. It compounds. Why is Hunter Henry lining up in line more? Because they can't block with 5 guys, and they need him to chip edge rushers. So, again, it's a little example. You're using one play there, but we're 9 weeks into this thing now where we've seen these sorts of things happen enough where we can point to that one play, but it's an example of a bigger issue.
Correct. And like you said, clearly they all compound on each other. So it's hard to blame just one person.
It's a team game, man.
Right. That's why
here's the ironic thing. Sorry to cut you off, but here's the ironic thing. What makes football the best sport is what's killing the Patriots right now. Maybe the reason more than anything else that I love football and I love watching the game and breaking down the game is, in no other sport can one broken cog screw you up, right? to the extent it can in football. In
Right.
basketball, if you have 4 great players on the floor, 4 all-stars, and one guy blows, you're still probably a title contender. In hockey, it's the same thing. You can kind of hide a lesser player in the lineup. Obviously, baseball is a very individual sport.
Right.
You can have 10 great players on the field in football. If there's one guy, the defense or the other side of the ball, it's true on both sides, really. If there's one guy, the other side knows they can pick on constantly, they're going to exploit that. If you have a bad, you have a bad right tackle, for instance, like the Patriots, other teams will take advantage of that. And it doesn't matter what the rest of your talent is. They're going to significantly hinder you. We've seen teams with great defensive lines and great linebackers, but the corners are lacking. And personnel-wise, it looks like they have more good defensive players than they don't. But that one corner man keeps getting beat. It's killing the Patriots right now because, like you said, they're just not all on the same page. I think there's a lot of talent out there, but there's enough individual issues that defenses are exploiting it. And we can get to the Shaq Leonard comments, by the way, or the Shaq Leonard stuff, by the way, about him calling out plays. This goes beyond the players. There's enough issues with the offense where the defense has seen enough that they know they have things they can exploit on a regular basis. That's what offense is. You want to be able to do, you either need to be able to do a couple of things so incredibly well that even if the other team knows it's coming, they can't stop it, or enough things well enough that the defense doesn't know what to look for. The Patriots were always kind of the first one. And that's what teams with elite quarterbacks usually are. They do enough things at such a high level that it doesn't really matter. Tom Brady's not here anymore, and they need to operate the way most teams operate, which is you do a lot of things well and just well enough that the defense being caught off guard gives you that advantage, and they just don't have that right now.
Right. Do you want to get into those Shaq Leonard comments as well today? Like you just said, just the fact that
I think it was interesting. Why you set it up, and then I'll give my thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just the Shaq Leonard had said that, or did he make a comment?
No, so
did Mark just ask?
Offensive players after the game, I believe it was Mark who originally reported it, said that Shaq Leonard was on the other side calling out some of their plays before they ran them. Shaq Leonard, the all-pro linebacker for the Colts. And then today, Bill was asked about it. Formerly Darius Leonard, right. And then today, Mark asked Bill about it, and Bill spoke today at around noon. And Bill said that C.J. Mosley did the same thing with the Jets 2 weeks ago. And whether that means somebody on the offense is tipping plays, it could be Mack, it could be a lineman, it could be somebody else, right? We saw, who was it? They had a wide receiver a couple years ago. Oh, it was Nikhil. Nikhil had a bad issue with tipping screens. Like, it's not just the quarterback. I saw people rushing to play Mack. They blame Mack. There's a famous story with the Ravens, Jonathan Ogden tipping plays for them at one point based on how he was lining up. So maybe it's that. Darius Leonard is just Shaq Leonard is just a really smart football player. Maybe it's credit to him. Maybe it's that the Patriots don't run a lot of different plays, and he just knows off certain looks. I saw Taylor Kyles made a really good point that there's a certain motion they run with Jonnu Smith that when they run that motion, a significant percentage of the time, there's a certain rushing look they run off of that. And that goes back into the setup plays versus the shot plays. So whatever it is, I mean, that's something they need to get figured out on the bye week, because if the other team knows what you're running, they're not good enough to make it work anyway. There was a time that was true when Brady was here where the other team could know the play call, and I don't think it would have mattered much. That's obviously not the case anymore.
Yeah, I mean, again, with tipping plays, right, you would think, and I don't know 100% what it is, because like you said, guys like Shaq Leonard, guys like C.J. Mosley are such elite linebackers, and they do get their noses into the film room all day and all night, and so they can kind of see some tendencies that it may be like they're not really tipping a play, but they kind of are, and they don't even know it. But if we're here in the middle of 2022, and it's the fact that we're running an offense with Patricia and Judge, and they're so inept at running an NFL offense that they have guys lining up in different splits, or their stances are so clearly so much forward, or their feet are so much back, or the distance where the running back is in the gun is so off, and it's all the time, and they're not catching that in the film room. That's a real problem. And I wonder if it is because you do still have Bill Belichick in that room, kind of being an overarching figurehead, you would think, to give them, the tips and tricks. And he's been in the league for so long and he knows not to tip plays. But then today, gonna give Mark Daniels from Mass Live is who kind of was on top of the story today. But Belichick just straight up coming in and be like, yeah, they knew what we were running 2 weeks in a row it's not good. It's not good. It's not good.
No. Although I will say how casually he answered that question, he almost answered it with a laugh.
Yeah.
Sort of makes me confident that like they figured it out and they fixed it, right? Or they think they fixed it. I don't think he would have been as cheery about an issue as significant as that if it was still a pending issue, if that makes sense.
No, I 100% I agree. Again, he's usually not quick to act on and answer a question like that. So yeah, that's a good thought and point there too. But I guess we can get to some good on the offense. The one consistent piece on this offense has just been Ramondre Stevenson. He had 15 carries for 60 yards. He also had 3 catches for only 10, but he had the nice touchdown catch. He continues to just pace this offense week in and week out. 60 yards on the ground and 10 in the air isn't a great stat line per se, but he's just so important to this team. And like you had mentioned on Sunday, if they didn't have him on Sunday, this game might have also been a lot different from an offensive perspective.
Yeah, and so he had 3 catches, but he was targeted 7 times.
Right.
So he was, he's the offense right now. We were debating, remember, the Mac Jones versus, is it the Mac Jones offense? Is it the Bailey Zappi offense? No, it's the Ramondre Stevenson offense. And yeah, we talked about this, and I wrote about this today on 98.5thesportshub.com. I did, mid-season grades for the offense, and we'll get into those on this show next week or Thursday. I think we're going to do it Thursday. They need secondary options offensively. It's Ramondre, and when it's not Ramondre, it's Jacoby Myers, and that's it. And look, you're going to have guys that get the ball more than others. Certainly. Obviously, you're going to target your best players, but there's nobody else right now. There is nobody else. So Ramondre continues to look great, but I'm going to continue to say as good as he looks, and it's not a knock on him, they need more answers than just Ramondre Stevenson, or the offense isn't going to go anywhere.
Well, that's the thing that bothers me too. And again, like you had just mentioned, we will on Thursday, we're going to do a sort of self-scout / state of the team at the bye week type show to kind of evaluate where we are and where they can go moving forward. But Alex wrote about it, like you said today, with his grades. I wrote about it today as well. They have playmakers on this offense. It's they need to get them schemed up to do it. And we just said it, but they need to be on the same page because tight ends like Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith aren't easy to find in the NFL. And a third receiver in Kendrick Bourne is not easy to find in the NFL. But they're not doing anything to help utilize these guys' best strengths. And it starts from the inside out with the offensive line and everything we just said for the last 15 minutes. But again, the playmakers are there. The secondary playmakers outside of Ramondre Stevenson and Jacoby Myers are there. They just need to be able to scheme them up. So again, we'll get into that more on Thursday's show. But anything else on the offense before we hop into the defense here?
So I actually shout out to my brother who wanted to ask this on the show on Sunday, didn't get around to it. He wanted to know why Tyquan Thornton hasn't gotten involved more. And I think a lot of it does go to, like we've talked, he's a deep threat. To get him the ball, you need time in the pocket. If time in the pocket, the offensive line has to be able to block. The offensive line can't block right now. But he hasn't had a design carry since that game in Cleveland, that first big game. We haven't really seen them use him on too many short patterns, run after the catch situations. If the offensive line is not going to block better, and I kind of talked about this before, right? Do they have the answer in-house or not to fix that in terms of personnel? They might not. One thing they can do is incorporate concepts that throw off the timing of the pass rush. It was a big thing we used to talk about all the time with Brady. One of the biggest Tom Brady cliches was he is at times his own best offensive lineman, his own best pass protector because of how fast he would get the ball out of his hands.
Yep.
Can't say that about Mac right now, and I know people think he's holding the ball a lot, and he is, but a lot of these plays require the quarterback to hold the ball. They're not giving him a lot of plays that are designed quick release plays. So things like that, running draw plays, running play action, end around, screens, those sorts of concepts. When you're a pass rusher, if the other team starts running draws and running them successfully, you're going to stop pinning your ears back, because all of a sudden you've got to be aware of that. You can't get all the way up the field and then have a run just beat you, right? So if they should incorporate some more of those concepts into the offense here, because it will help out the offensive line. It will help out Mac. And I think Tyquan Thornton could be a big part of that. Again, with end around screens, give him some quick slants. Even you can build him into RPOs, right? Let him kind of get going with the ball in his hands in the open field. That would be, and we can talk more about this on Thursday, but that's something where there was so little of that in that game against the Colts.
They used to do those types of things with N'Keal Harry. They would give N'Keal Harry end arounds, and they would scheme him up on single side wide receiver screens, and it's like, this guy has freaking rocks in his cleats. Like, why are we doing this with N'Keal Harry, and now they won't do it with Tyquan? It's kind of startling.
I thought the Colts game, specifically a team where I talked about it before, the defensive line was the problem. If you could beat the defensive line, yes, Shaq Leonard can play, Stephon Gilmore can play, but you'd find ways to move the ball. I thought the Colts game was a great opportunity to run some of those concepts, and we didn't see it. There were some, but not nearly enough.
Right. So yeah, again, we'll talk about the incorporation of how, like, a guy like Tyquan Thornton, for example, we can dive more into that on Thursday. But yeah, like you said, I mean, you have these guys, just get them the ball. But again, hopefully that's what they go into this bye week can do. Before we get into the defense, though, let's talk about our partners at LinkedIn. Because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain, that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. We use LinkedIn Jobs here at CLNS Media, and we can't recommend it enough. It's super easy to post your job, and then just add the listing and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. As we inch closer to December, now's the perfect time to add the right team member and end your 2022 strong. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/beat. That's linkedin.com/beat to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, as always, apply. All right, the defense, Alec.
Should have saved the Jeff Saturday story for that read. Should have worked it in there.
Yeah, I know. You're right. Yeah, Jeff Saturday. Yeah, rumor has it that Jim Irsay didn't actually call Jeff Saturday. He found his job on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/beat. That's just a rumor going around. So post your job there. Again, that's our friends at LinkedIn. But let's talk about the defense, Alex, because the defense was awesome on Sunday. I mean, they held the Colts to just 121 total yards. They recorded 9 sacks. Where am I here? Sorry. Wanted to put that up on the lower third because they were awesome. Like I said, they 121 yards, 9 sacks, pick 6 from Jon Jones. I started Sunday's post-game show, I guess not belittling, but kind of pushing the defense to the side because I was so concerned about the offense that I don't think we really, and I know it's Sam Ehlinger and I know they were expected to do it, but they did it, and they did it tenfold. They were outstanding. Ehlinger threw for just 103 yards, again, the interception. I think this defense is going to be the reason they either make or don't make the postseason coming down the stretch, because if they play like this and the offense is still as bad as they've been, they can still win games, and they showed it on Sunday.
Yeah, and so here's where I'll kind of throw the qualifiers out. Yeah, Sam Ehlinger, he's not an NFL quarterback. I don't know what the Colts are doing trying to build him up. It looks to me right now like it's a full-on tank. They're trying to get that first overall pick, which with 3 wins and a tie, I don't think they're going to get there, but that's another point.
Which is too bad for guys like Steph Gilmore, who is there on sort of a, like, just they bring in a guy like Matt Ryan, and you can.
They have a talented roster, man.
Yeah,
It's a Mickey Mouse. It's a Mickey Mouse organization. It always has been. But they hung the freaking finalist banner. That being said, Sam Ehlinger, I talked about this on Thursday, if he has one redeeming trait, it's that he's not easy to tackle. I had one broken tackle for him in that game, and it was the one where he kind of jumped around Miles Bryant, who is at a significant mismatch there. So they did that. And that Colts offensive line, I know they haven't played well this year, but they've got good players, man. That line's no joke. We all know Quentin Nelson can do. I almost said Charlie Kelly. Dennis Kelly,
Ryan Kelly
Ryan
and
Kelly.
Ryan Kelly's the center.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. They've got guys who can block. So ton of credit to the front seven for the job they did. They didn't let Sam Ehlinger break runs. They didn't give him second chances, and they were able to pressure that line and get to the quarterback. So that's probably where the qualifiers end, or the non-qualifiers end. But
yeah,
I'll give them credit for that. And to be able to kind of sit on that game going into the bye has to feel pretty good.
definitely. I mentioned it 3 or 4 times, I think, because I thought it was quite the interesting stat. But Matthew Judon and Josh Uche, the first Patriots teammates to each record 3 sacks in a game since Andre Tippett and Don Blackman in 1985. They were both dominant, so let's kind of give them their flowers individually, because Matthew Judon now leads the NFL in sacks with 11.5 on the season. And on Sunday, he had 6 tackles. He had 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 4 hits on the quarterback. He's my pick for Defensive Player of the Year right now because he continues to be like immensely valuable in these games. I know a guy like Micah Parsons in Dallas is a guy who is also the best player on arguably the best defense in football, but Judon's value and his talent is unmatched right now, especially in the AFC. And we'll talk about it as far as the bye week goes and how poorly he played after the bye last week after having a dominant first half of the season. But if he can keep up this pace, which he had mentioned that he worked on in the offseason and currently through this first half of the season to stay in shape and make sure he can play at this level, he's going to be considered for Defensive Player of the Year and as one of the best players on the defensive line, or one of the best linebackers in football.
Yeah, he is the league leading sacks by 3 right now. He has 11.5, and who is it at 8? There's 3 guys tied at 8.
Zadarius Smith is one of them.
Bosa,
Yeah.
And I can't remember who the third one is. It might be Myles Garrett, but yeah, he's been absolutely outstanding. But like you said, here comes the question, right? And I think this question really applies to the whole team, not Matthew Judon. I think it's going to be the biggest question of the next 2 weeks. The bye week became a thing last year. Mm-hmm. It was like a thing that, as they had that backslide and they lost 5 of 6, the bye week was entangled in that. What happened at the bye? And maybe it was a coincidence that they fell off there, and maybe they just couldn't finish the season strong. And had the bye not been there, they still would have lost that at the end. But they've for Judon specifically, it's going to be a big deal. And he talked this year about how he wants to be in better. He worked on being in better shape to finish the season. The Patriots have done their part. His usage rate this year compared to this time last year is down about 10%, which is great. They've gotten by with him playing less snaps. The other thing, and we can bring this back to Sunday here, I think part of the problem for him last year, and this isn't to totally excuse him, like I said, he just fell off. He looked gassed. He looked out of shape. But there was no – Christian Barmore's a good pass rusher, okay? But he's rushing from the interior. And it's a lot easier to deal with a guy on the edge and a guy next to him than guys on 2 separate edges, obviously, because you have to cover more ground when it's 2 pass rushers. The guy playing on the other side of Judon, whoever that pass rusher is, they don't have to be an all-world pass rusher. They don't. But they have to be good enough that teams can't just sell out to block Judon on that side. The guy needs to give you enough to keep the other team honest. And I don't think they had that guy last year. Josh Uche now he had 10 pressures in the first 5 games, 4 in the last 2, including 3. He's got 4 sacks in the last 2. If he can just play it, if he can maintain that, I don't even know if he needs to be at that level, but if he can play close to this level, it helps because you have another good pass rusher, but it's also going to monumentally help Matthew Judon. Because teams were basically sliding 4 guys that way. They were sliding from the right guard over to take out Barmore and Judon. And it was 4 to block 2. And the Patriots didn't have a counter on the strong side because right tackle, they were blocking it 1-on-1. Right now, Josh Uche can't be blocked 1-on-1. And if Josh Uche can't be blocked 1-on-1, Matthew Judon can't be blocked 1-on-1, and Christian Barmore can't be blocked 1-on-1, well, now you need 6. Now you need 6 guys to block those 3, and then that's either 1 less guy in the pattern or it limits the plays you can call, or you're just going to be pressured all the time. That's what ideally you want as a pass rush. That's a little bit of an oversimplification, but the numbers weren't there for them last year, and teams figured that out late in the year. If Josh Uche can continue to play the way he's playing and they get Barmore back and he's healthy, and it seemed like he was trending that way before the bye, if they can get him back and he's healthy and you got Uche and Judon, that pass rush is scary.
Right.
That pass rush is really, really scary. And so that's honestly, congratulations, Matt Judon, 3 sacks, awesome game. I was more excited about the performance Josh Uche put together and what he's put together the last 2 weeks, because he has a chance to put that defense in a really good spot.
I agree, and it's like, welcome to the NFL, Josh Uche, because he's a guy who they drafted, three years ago now. He was a second-round pick, but a guy who he always had good camps. He always looked like he was going to turn into a stud, and it's like, oh, another solid, Belichick second-round-ish draft pick, I guess. Like, a guy who looked like he could contribute early, and he just hasn't been it yet. And over his first 2 years, it was just, or his first year and a half, or whatever the case may be, but it was just himself and us kind of waiting for Josh Uche to turn it on as a pass rusher. Now with Judon here and Uche, morphing into his own and getting older, and he's not their number one. He's a compliment to Matthew Judon now, and he's doing it like a stud, right? Like you said, 3 sacks, 6 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 QB hits. A great coming out party really for Josh Uche. And like you said, if they can continue to have him be a secondary complement to Matt Judon, it's gonna be scary for teams. Not just the Colts, but these 2 guys can compete against any offensive line of football if they play the way they did on Sunday. The other guy I did a little fact checking was Justin Houston's also up there for sacks. He's got 8.
Okay. And he can play. He's a good player.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, and then the other outside of Uche, I guess, and Judon, the other just piece on the defense I kind of wanted to talk about, and it was only, I guess it was one play, but it also morphs into special teams, is just Jon Jones and the way Jon Jones has played lately. Yeah. Makes an awesome interception, pick 6, turns on the wheels. That guy's so fast. He's outstanding. He can cover the fastest players in the NFL. And a guy who was slept on early. He was a special teamer. He paid his dues. He did the right thing. Patriot through and through. The old saying, the things people hate now because everyone's down on Belichick and the Patriots. But the things that we've talked about, the typical Patriot is Jon Jones, and he's completely just turned into a stud in the NFL. I think that he deserves. He's a top corner in one of the better corners in the AFC East, and it's a AFC East that's loaded with corners. So I mean, and a guy who's a stud and just has turned it on lately.
Yeah, hand up moment for me. I mean, I was not for moving him to the boundary. I thought that they were kind of scrambling. I thought it looked desperate, and he's been excellent. He's been fantastic out there, and it's allowed them to keep that rotation with him, Jalen Mills, and Jack Jones. I know people don't want to hear it. Miles Bryant's actually been pretty good the last couple of weeks. He hasn't allowed multiple catches in a game the last 3 games. He hasn't allowed more than 2 catches in a game the last 5. The last time he allowed more than 2 catches in a game was against the Packers, and he's still playing the same amount. So it does feel like the corners have all kind of come together, and they have that situation locked down. We really didn't know what it was going to look like, right, following the departure of J.C. Jackson. But they've got it figured out, and Jonathan Jones being able to not only hold his own on the boundary, but really dominate on the boundary is a big reason why. So he deserves a ton of credit. I think I would go Judon, but I think you could make an argument Jonathan Jones has been their most valuable player on defense this year. I think if you emphasize the word valuable, there's a strong argument for it. So credit to him. He's been fantastic. And like you said, another big game for him on Sunday, the pick 6, the block punt, he's balling out.
Yeah, but do you want to segue into special teams, or do you have any more on the defense before we get into specials?
Just real quick on the defense, it's a point I've been making, but you can see how different they look when Kyle Duggar's on the field. It's night and day.
Yeah, so that's why when you talk about MVPs, I mean, he's a guy who comes to my head too. He's like the 3rd guy there. I think I had called him my defensive MVP last Thursday, but the performance of, like you said, the performance of Jones and Judon kind of took that over on Sunday. But sorry, continue on Duggar. But
No, that's it. That's the point.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, he really, I mean, he's a special kind of player. He's a really good player.
Yeah, he's one of the better safeties in the league. He's dominant. But special teams too. They had an all-around game on Sunday against the Colts, which I had talked about it after the Jets game that they were better, but I'm sorry because I kind of want to caveat that with the fact that Jake Bailey is not playing great. He's not punting the ball well.
I mean,
but
he's the only issue though. I mean, besides him,
yeah,
they were outstanding.
right. Like I said, Jonathan Jones, Belichick talked about it after the game. That the Ramondre Stevenson touchdown and the Jonathan Jones touchdown were sort of bonus points, and they really were. They were 14 extra points where they got the offense got the ball at the 3 with Stevenson's receiving touchdown, and then Jon Jones pick 6. That's 14 points. 26 minus 14 is 12. 12. So the Patriots scored 12 offensive points, 4 field goals of Nick Folk, what that is. So like special teams, Jon Jones himself basically turning 14 points in for the Patriots was, I mean, just outstanding. And then you have Nick Folk, who goes 4 for 4 or 5 for 5. I think he was 4 for 4 this week and 5 for 5 last week. So just outstandingly consistent. And Marcus Jones was the other special teamer that I just continue to think he has incredible value. And not as a 4th round pick, not even having to play defense. His kick and punt return abilities are like huge for this team right now. He leads the NFL in kickoff return yards, and he's second in the NFL in. Sorry, I'm reading this. I have a note. Second in yards per punt return with 13.4. So like, giving them great field position basically every time he touches the football. It's the only bad thing here is Jake Bailey, who is struggling to punt the ball, but good stuff on specials as well.
Yeah, it's really coming together. And Matthew Slater, after the game, I talked to him about it. He called it personal. After the way they played against the Colts last year. So to see them come out, have that performance, like you said, it's all humming. Brendan Schooler looks like the real deal. He's been excellent. They just got to get those punts figured out. One way or the other, they got to get those punts figured out, because I think the offense can be better. I don't know how much better. Field position is always going to be very important for this team. Field position is going to be massive down the stretch. So that, they need Jake Bailey out there flipping the field. They're going to need him doing that, especially once you get into games against, the Bills, the Bengals, some of these more big shot offenses. They'll play the Dolphins again. I think the Dolphins the last game of the year, right? Or no, second to last. The Bills are last. But
Bills are last.
They're going to need Jake Bailey come around here at some point.
Yeah, well, let's sort of quickly. I mean, we'll get into fully what they need to do on the bye, and we'll do the self scout. I said it 3 times now on Thursday, but an underrated piece to that is, I think, the special teams unit, because they have been better the last 2 weeks, but there's been a few different plays in a few different situations where it's like, oh, okay, this needs to be fixed. So, for example, the DeMarcus Mitchell rolling into the end zone when Bailey actually had his best punt of the season against the Jets, and he just rolls into the end zone, and it ends up being a touchback instead of down at the 1. And then this week, Bailey just can't flip the field for them anymore. So it's like those 2 types of things are things that you're lucky you were playing against the Jets and the Colts, because they didn't matter. But special teams freaking matters in this league, and if you can't get those two things fixed, it can kind of bite you in the ass as you come down the stretch. But that's what we got here on Pat's Colts. Any last thoughts really before we wrap this up? Kind of a quick show, but I mean, it's the bye week, right? So
yeah. We could do a quick Boston Sports Minute on Xander Bogaerts. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like, they're gonna let him walk. Get ready for it. Talking about, he's plan A and he's the preference and all of that. Then treat him like it. Then pay him. Then give him the contract he deserves. And that's not even getting to Rafael Devers. John Henry selling Liverpool or Manchester United or whichever freaking thing he owns.
Liverpool.
Pay those guys. It's not that hard. If you pay Xander Bogaerts and you pay Rafael Devers, you probably have the best infield in baseball. They're the Boston Red Sox. They can afford it. I cannot believe I shouldn't say can't believe, because of course we are doing this freaking thing again where the Red Sox have some homegrown spectacular talent, a guy beloved by this entire city, and they're going to let him walk out the door before the age of 30. He's not going to get a second true contract from the team or a post-arbitration contract from the team. It's gross, man. It is
gross. It's disgusting. They did it with Mookie. Mookie, like you said, homegrown guy.
I mean, they did it. It goes back to Jon Lester. They've been doing this for 10 years now. And the only saving grace here is that once they botch the Devers situation, there's no more homegrown stars to do it with. Tristan Cassis is 8 years away from being in this situation. So we get some actual peace from them ripping our hearts out. But my goodness, the Xander Bogaerts reports today, I know they're supposed to look optimistic, but I saw the same reports about Mookie. I saw the same reports about Andrew Benintendi, Jackie Bradley Jr. Obviously aren't the same caliber player, but I saw the same reports about Eduardo Rodriguez. I saw the same reports about Jon Lester. I get they don't like signing guys past the age of 30. I get that. They want youth. One, it's baseball, all right? It's not football where guys are retiring by 32. Two, you can have a couple guys over the age of 30. I'm not saying build your whole team out of them. Don't be the New York Yankees or the other extreme. But
that's going to be hard to get through Chaim Bloom's skull. So
Xander Bogaerts is the kind of guy culturally you keep. And then Rafael Devers is 25. God damn it. Rafael Devers is 25. Pay him. Pay him. He is a perennial MVP candidate.
That's my thing about being. It's first of all, it's hysterical how the energy in this show changes when we talk about the Patriots who we cover and are on their beat and in their locker rooms every day, and it's like we tiptoe around things and we analyze the Patriots and we're calm and cool, but then once we get in our Boston sportsman, it's like, what the hell are these guys doing? And it's true, especially with teams like the Red Sox, because you do it with Mookie Betts and you see him go to LA and you see him win a World Series and it's like, oh, maybe that was a mistake. And even if they do it with Bogaerts, it's like, okay, I hear it, kind of, not really, but he is older. But again, if they do it with Devers too, which, I mean, we'll see what happens with Bogaerts, but if they do it here with Devers too, I'm completely turning in my fan card because it just makes no sense. It's not what sports are about. Sports are about winning. Sports are about your fans and your franchise and homegrown and watching these guys win and celebrate and all that stuff. And it's like, if that's not what they're about, then why do you even own the team?
So it's cute you think that, Mike. Sports are, professional sports at least, are ultimately a business at the end of the day. And it's a harsh reality to accept. It's one I am still
but
to accept. But here's the thing. We're beyond Bogaerts at this point. Again, there is a baseball argument to move on from Bogaerts. I don't think it's a good one, but I understand it. Sure. Moving on from Rafael Devers is a bad business decision. From a business point of view, if you're operating the Red Sox as a business, letting that guy walk out the door after what you've put the fans through here for the last 10 years, even with 2 titles, by the way, with all these guys leaving if they don't win the title, they finish in last place.
Right.
It's a bad business decision because the Celtics are good. They've got budding young superstars. They are going to stay good. The Bruins are good. They've got young players, one who they've already paid, and another that if they don't pay is a bad business decision. The Patriots will always be relevant. Football is king. People, if you don't give people a reason to tune in, they will tune you out. And the reason to tune into the Red Sox right now is Rafael Devers.
Yep.
It's a bad, forget the warm and fuzzies, which I wish that was more of a part of sports than it is. I don't mean to pick on you, Mike, but
I agree with you.
Trags hammered this home to me, so now you have to get it too. But it is a bad business decision if they let Rafael Devers go.
All right, but you talk about that, right? And you say it's not about the fans, but like you just correlated it perfectly. It's, we think it's about us and it's not, but it is about winning because winning makes you money and winning puts butts in seats and butts in seats gives you more money. And so like it's like football. It's all teamwork in that regard. So when you let a 25-year-old go, who's one of the best hitters in baseball, who can be here for the next 15 years, good for business. Bogaerts, older, you don't know how he's going to age. Again, you should sign him because he is one of the top shortstops in baseball, but the argument's there. If they do it with Devers, I'm done. See you later.
Yeah.
But
agree.
That's our ranting section. That's our Boston Sports Minute here. The Bruins Pooh Bear jerseys were awesome, but
those are great. Those are great. Those are
excellent.
Big year for the throwbacks.
Yeah. But I guess that's it. I guess that'll do it here at Patriots Beat. Quick hitter going through the offensive, defense, special teams. The Patriots again beat the Colts 26-3 on Sunday. Beat them so bad that they fired their head coach and brought in an ESPN analyst, Jeff Saturday. We will be back on Thursday. We will do a evaluation of the Patriots at a bye, a more in-depth self scout, if you will. Sort of maybe integrate how other teams can attack this team moving forward, but also go through some grades and it'll be good. We'll plan the whole thing out for you. It'll be good stuff. So tune in Thursday. Until then, he's Alex Barth from 98.5 The Sports Hub. Follow him at Real Alex Barth on Twitter. Catch him on 98.5thesportshub.com. Same with myself, Twitter at Mike Kadlick, and read my stuff on CLNSmedia.com. We got Patriots coverage there every single day. Until Thursday, thank y'all for watching. We'll see you soon.